Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Did you like my hop onto the stage? Thank you so much. How are we all doing today? Are we well? Yeah, love that. Welcome to the Germination Station, brought to you by our sponsors, Milwaukee. Here they are. I'm going to gesture and you're all going to go, woo, ready? Thank you for validating me on that. They've been creating exceptional Japanese garden tools for over 20 years. Do go check them out. They're on a stall by our box office. We are so happy that you could join us today on day 3 of the first ever Yo Valley Organic Garden Festival. Our aim was to bring the gardening community together to share ideas, explore new topics, so that you leave feeling that together we can take small steps that have a large impact on our environment through our gardens, and we really appreciate you being here today. Who's been here for all 3 days? Look at that sea of hands. I love it. Thank you. And if you are here for the first time, welcome. So my first speaker today is just pollinating in the background, but I just wanted to tell you about what's coming up this morning. At 11:15 to 11:45, we have Lara Honor, who is speaking to our theme today brilliantly, which is inspiring and engaging the next generation of gardeners. So do come along at 11:15 and check her out. But first, and most importantly, my first guest today is the author of the Seed Collector's Kit and Grow a New Garden. You can follow her adventures through her online channels under the name So Much More, or in her monthly features in Kitchen Garden magazine. She is an ecologist, that's easy for me to say, kitchen gardener and garden writer. She is best known for combining her love of science with gardening in easy-to-follow advice and an approachable style. And no doubt we are here to learn some of this easy-to-follow advice. So please put your hands together and give a warm Yo Valley welcome to Becky Searle.
Hello, thank you so much. Gosh, it's so lovely to see so many of you on this slightly dodgy-looking weather day today. So, what I want to do for you today is I would like to talk to you about seed saving. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about why seed saving is so important. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how we can get started with seed saving, some easy seeds to save. You can see my very beautiful bouquet that I've brought from my garden here, which my 11-year-old says is disgusting. Sorry, my microphone keeps pinging up. There we go. And and then I'm hopefully going to be able to clear you all out in time so that you can go and see Frances, because she's absolutely fabulous. So try not to panic and don't feel like you need to be rude if you want to leave early and be one of the people in the front row, okay? Cool. Right. So show of hands, please. Who here already saves their own seeds, even just a couple? Amazing. Okay, right, in that case, we have lots and lots of people who could potentially answer the next question, which is why? Why do you save your own seeds? Does anybody want to be brave and give me their number one reason? Go for it. Cheaper. Absolutely. And now, there are quite a few reasons to save your own seeds, and we're going to look at some of them today, but this is the number one, and it's actually the only one that's not really related to the others. Now, anybody notice that the cost of seeds is going up and up and up recently? Yeah? So the global seed industry last year was worth $86 billion. This year, it's worth $93 billion. By 2030, it's estimated to be worth about $187 billion. Now, if anybody has any difficulties imagining what a billion looks like, let's look at it in terms of seconds. 1 million seconds is about 12 days. 1 billion seconds is 39 years and 8 months. So 187 billion is a big, big number. And this is just an illustration of the cost of seeds going up and up and up. And of course, this is a problem because these seeds are owned by somebody. And this is what I really want to talk to you about today is seed sovereignty. Now, seed sovereignty is ownership of seeds. And when we grow our own vegetables or our own flowers and we save our own seeds, those seeds belong to us. And that is a really, really powerful thing. because there's actually one company that owns 50% of the seeds in the world, and we're going to look at why that is such a big problem. So Monsanto, the lovely people that make Roundup, which I'm sure since you're all here in the Yo Valley Organic Garden, you're all big fans of Roundup. So Monsanto owns 50% of the seeds in the whole world, and that's a hugely scary statistic. So we can take back some of that power from them because seeds are free and really, really easy to get your hands on. Now, part of the reason it's such a scary thing that Monsanto owns 50% of the seeds is because they get to decide on the price, which is, going up and up. And they also get to decide on the varieties. Now, one of the reasons that saving your own seeds is so important is biodiversity. Now, ordinarily, when we think about biodiversity, what we think about is cute, cuddly red pandas and polar bears and things like that. Not many of us think about biodiversity in terms of vegetables or flowers. We might think about flowers perhaps a little bit more than vegetables, but there are loads and loads and loads of fabulous varieties of vegetables, and they all contribute towards biodiversity. Now, the reason that biodiversity is so important is because it's all about resilience, and we're going to talk a little bit more about resilience in a minute. But if you imagine that you have washed up on a desert island and there's 3 other people, so there's just 4 of you on this desert island, and there's nothing there. There's no trees, there's no nothing. Your chances of survival are not great. If you do manage to find some food, catch some fish or something, one of the other people in your group might decide to steal your fish, and then there's not really an awful lot you can do about it. If you washed up on a desert island and there was 50 of you, and there was loads of trees and loads of coconuts and loads of mangoes and maybe some little pigs that Captain Cook had dropped off at some point in the history, your chances of survival are much better. And again, if you landed on that same desert island, but this time it was absolutely full of food, full of plants, full of wildlife, and there was 500 of you, you might well decide to stay. It's quite nice, actually. We don't really need to work. If anybody's being naughty, we can just build a bamboo prison and stick them in there. And it'll be quite fun. Now, this is a good illustration of biodiversity. The more you have of everything, the easier it is to survive. Now, there was a famous ecologist called Paul Ehrlich who described biodiversity as like rivets on a plane. A plane can fly. It has thousands and thousands and thousands of rivets holding every little bit of the plane together. And if every day one of those rivets fell out, that plane would carry on flying for ages and ages and ages. And then one day, the one rivet would fall out and the plane would fall out of the sky. And this is, again, an illustration of how important biodiversity is. But what have vegetables got to do with this? Well, 1 in 4 vegetable varieties is endangered, is an endangered species. Now, it's a lot easier, I'll grant you, to care about a poor, sad-looking polar bear sitting on its very own tiny bit of ice and looking like it's about to cry than it is to care about a particularly red kind of tomato. But it's really, really important because as our planet is changing and shifting constantly, there are going to be things that grow really well at the moment, but don't necessarily grow really well in 50 years with a slightly different climate. And there are going to be things that get diseases now that the other varieties won't get the diseases. So anything that we can do to contribute towards biodiversity is absolutely fundamental to the survival of the human race. Now, in the Arctic Circle, on an island, a Norwegian island called Svalbard, the Norwegians who are... Is anybody here Norwegian? Just checking? No? Okay, they like to catastrophize a little bit. And it's a sweeping generalization, they're not all like that. But they've built a huge, great vault, and it's under a mountain on this island in the middle of nowhere in the Arctic Circle. It's encased in concrete, and it's really heavily guarded, and it's full of seeds. There are 2.5 billion seeds. I'm not sure who counted them, but there's quite a few seeds. in there. And it represents about 40,000 different varieties of food and flowers. And the idea is, it's called the Millennium Seed Bank, but usually called the Doomsday Vault. The idea is that if everything in the world just went to hell and it all went kaboom, then we still have this vault of seeds that we could essentially just start life again. Like I said, they like catastrophizing. Hopefully, we never have to use it. But there are farmers and gardeners and growers across the world who all contribute to this incredible resource. And it goes to show you how important these seeds are, that they are essentially kept in one of the safest places on planet Earth. Now, what actually is a seed? A seed is a capsule of life. It's essentially a tiny little baby plant that can survive on its own until conditions are optimum. Now, we all know that in order to grow a seed, we have to give it the right conditions, yeah? It has to be wet, the moisture breaks down the seed coat, and it has to have sometimes a little bit of warmth. Some seeds don't need warmth, but most do, and that just kind of is a sensor within the seed. It senses that warmth and it knows that now's the right time to germinate. Some seeds also need light, and there are other triggers that can trigger germination in seeds. Now, I can't actually remember where I was going with that. Oh, yes. So it's essentially, if we were to do this same thing with humans, it would be like having a tiny embryonic baby and then sort of just launching it into the air. Like some plants will spread them on the wind, or some will ping them out of pods, and some will just drop them on the floor. Now, we're not that careless with our babies, but our babies wouldn't last 5 minutes if we did that, whereas plants are incredible. There was a team of scientists recently who managed to resurrect a plant whose seed was encased in Arctic permafrost for, I think, 17,000 years. And this team of scientists found this seed, and they planted it, and they gave it those optimum conditions to germinate, and voila, an extinct plant came back to life. And this is really, really important because it goes to show that saving these seeds can literally save plants from extinction. And we can all contribute towards this in our gardens. And the way that we can do this is by growing the right varieties and by saving our own seeds. Now, a little while ago, I said that that Monsanto owns 50% of the seeds in the world. Now, a few decades ago, in India, Monsanto brought out a genetically modified cotton crop, and they showed it to all the farmers, said this cotton crop is absolutely amazing, it's disease resistant, it resists the main pest, and it's really, really high producing. Brilliant. All the farmers wanted it. And the farmers that didn't want it then couldn't grow enough cotton to compete with the ones that did have it. So then everybody started growing this genetically modified crop. And Monsanto went, brilliant, we'll put the prices up. So they put the prices up, and the farmers had to borrow money to grow these crops. And then what happened is that the resilience started to fail, and these crops started then to be succumbing to disease and to pests. And the crops started to fail, and the farmers weren't making enough money. And the fact that Monsanto had this grip on these farmers, they said, well, you have to buy the seed again, but now you also have to buy the pesticide in order to treat the insect that is attacking your crops. And so all of these farmers were giving all of their money to Monsanto, and tragically it resulted in around 300,000 suicides of Indian farmers. And this is just one example of really the just devastating effect of not being able to own your own seeds. Now, these farmers were told that they were not allowed to save the seeds of these crops. They were F1 varieties as well, so even if they had saved them, they wouldn't have come true to form. some farmers were actually sued by Monsanto for trying to save their own seeds because the seeds were copyrighted, and that's not allowed. So when you think about, obviously, this on a gardening scale, much, much less dramatic, hopefully. I mean, you might save kind of 50 quid in a year. So it's not going to be the be-all and end-all, but it is really, really important that we show the seeds the kind of respect that they deserve. Now, the other thing is that seed production is actually quite a heavy input environment. So in order to produce 1 kilogram of tomatoes in a greenhouse, in a climate-controlled environment, it takes 1.7 kilograms of carbon. So approximately 0.7 kilograms more carbon than you're getting out of it at the end. Now, we think about how much carbon we use to grow our own tomatoes. If you're growing them in a garden, you've used your own compost, you haven't bothered to give it anything, because if you just lay compost on the ground, the tomato plants will feed themselves. Our tomatoes are carbon negative, right? They are taking carbon out of the air and they're making that carbon in their leaves and in the tomatoes, and it's a really, really positive thing. But tomatoes that are grown commercially are not carbon negative, they are carbon positive? That sounds better, doesn't it? But anyway, they use lots of carbon to make tomatoes. And so when we scale this up to a global industry that's worth $93 billion, that's a lot of carbon just being used just to produce seeds, when actually, if we go into our gardens, not only are we saving that £3.95 or whatever it cost for our seed packet, we are also saving the carbon that was used for that seed. The other thing that we're doing is that we're creating resilience within our gardens, because as you grow something year on year in your own garden and you save the seeds from it, what you are getting is something that is genetically evolved to survive in your garden's conditions, which is absolutely wonderful, because that's not something that money can buy. Now, over here, I've got some little sunflowers that I picked from my garden yesterday. They're teeny. They're really pathetic. But the big ones that I have in my garden, I'm just leaving them for now because they're not quite dried out. But when you save your own seeds, what you want to do is you want to try and save the ones from the best. So what we usually want to do is we want to eat the best ones, don't we? The biggest carrot and the biggest parsnip, the biggest beetroot, we want to eat them. But actually, if you save the seeds from them, let them go to seed, you don't need to do anything, you just need to let them go, and they will eventually go to seed. That's how to get that genetic advantage in your own garden. So if every year you save the best one, the seeds from the best one, you're going to evolve your own varieties that are specifically adapted for your garden, which is really quite fantastic. So, sorry, this is a new talk, and I haven't given it before, and I'm really struggling to figure out. Right, okay, I'm losing my train of thought. Okay, so when it comes to deciding on the plants that we're going to use, we want to use the best of the best, yeah? So how do we get them? How do we decide which varieties to save from? So I touched on it earlier that F1 varieties are no good. Now, the reason that this is no good is because they are taking the genetic information from one variety and the genetic information from another and putting them together. What happens with that is that it's basically like when you cross a lion with a tiger and you get a liger, but you can't then get another liger from that. So essentially, what you grow from an F1 variety seed won't come out true to form. Now, you can still do it. It is still possible to grow seeds from an F1 variety tomato that you've grown in your own garden, and it will still look like a tomato, might be all right, might be really good, you just don't know. So the results may vary. But basically what you want to try and do is you want to try and grow heritage or heirloom seeds. Now, what's the difference between heritage and heirloom? So all heritage seeds are heirlooms, but not all heirloom seeds are heritage. Okay, I'm going to explain that, don't worry. So in terms of saving seeds, heirloom seeds are the ones that are being passed down from generation to generation. And now we don't really have this in the UK. We don't really do this, do we? We don't go, oh yeah, this is my nana's tomato seeds. I mean, some families do. Great if yours is one of those families. But if you go somewhere like Romania, that's absolutely normal. Christmas, gonna get some seeds from your nana. It's lovely. And they pass down seeds through generations. And these are heirloom seeds. And they're passed down because they are really, really good varieties to grow. They're just really nice things to eat. And the families, oh, yeah, those tomatoes are our absolute favourites. We're going to save the seeds and pass them down. And a heritage variety is one that has some specific use or some specific historical significance. So something that's interesting about it, like there's a variety of bean that was gifted to the British from the French when World War II ended. It's very random. I don't know who decided to do that, but that's then become a heritage variety. But any heritage or heirloom seeds, if you buy a packet of those seeds, or you get some seeds from a neighbour or a friend or a member of your family, those ones are perfect for saving, and they're going to be the really interesting varieties. And by saving them, you're going to be saving money, you're going to be creating biodiversity by saving interesting varieties, and you're going to then be able to build resilience in your garden by taking control of that and then adapting that to your garden. Now, saving seeds is really, really easy, but if you want some help getting started, this is the Seed Collector's Kit, and it basically has 50 cards in here, and each one is a different plant. There's vegetables and there's flowers. And on the back of each card, it says how to save the seeds, how to plant them again. And there's a little booklet in there with information on how to get started with seed saving, all the stuff that I've just talked about. And this is available over at Sherlock and Pages, which is the little bookworm tent. So I'm very aware that we need to wrap up because you guys all want to go and see Francis. But does anybody have any questions? Do feel free, if you don't want to do any questions, to go and decamp. Any questions? Yes. So the Norwegian seed bank is much, much larger. It's the biggest seed bank in the world. It's got contributors from, I think it's 240 different countries across the world. So it's a massive global collection, whereas Kew is much smaller scale than that. It's also not built somewhere that's designed to withstand the apocalypse. So Kew is kind of more for saving biodiversity and things like that. But if the idea with the Millennium Seed Bank is that if there were to be a asteroid hit the planet or something like that, that hopefully that would be able to survive. Whereas Kew, I think they would probably go, oh no. So, okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Again, I've got one over here on the other side.
Sorry,
Hi.
Sorry, could you...
You're absolutely fine. We've just got a mic over there, and then we'll come over here for our next question. So if you want to get a mic over there, and we'll start over here.
How do you deal with, forgive my pronunciation, like cucurbits, there's the cucumbers and courgettes, who obviously, if you open pollinate, there is a risk of toxics.
Yes.
Toxins.
Yes, so you have to be very, very careful with them, basically. It is actually described in here. There are some varieties that do come true to form and don't cross-pollinate with other varieties, like the field pumpkin, but most cucurbits you want to be very careful with, and as a rule, kind of either hand pollinate and then seal off the flower. So put some sort of bag around them so that you make sure that they're not getting any pollination from anywhere else, or just not save the seeds from them. That's one of the only ones that is a little bit dodgy, because for anybody who doesn't know, if you get the two different varieties of a pumpkin, squash, cucumber or something, they can be toxic. And there was a few years ago, there was some packets of seeds sold by a seed company that accidentally were cross-pollinated and did make a lot of people poorly. So even buying seeds, you're not 100% safe. The best course of action is to just try a little bit first before you gorge yourself on it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is that working? It's kind of related. So you were saying about the F1 varieties, and they're kind of like cross-pollinated already, or they're a hybrid of two seeds. When you've got two varieties in your own garden, what stops them cross-pollinating? Is it only specific plants that do that, or is it because that's done in a lab?
So when you can either put some distance between them, but obviously it depends on the size of your garden, or you can do what I just said. Is basically what I do is buy a pack of little organza bags from eBay or whatever, and then you just pop them over the flower after you've hand pollinated. So what you want to do is, just as the flower is opening, before it's actually opened and any bees have come in and done their business, is take a paintbrush, make sure you get the pollen from the right plant, add it to the pollen on that plant or to the stigma on that plant, and then close it off so there can be no interference from a bumblebee. And that's the best way of doing it. Just make sure it's a closed environment. I don't know why this keeps popping up.
Any other questions, folks? Put your hands in the air. If not, oh yes, go over there.
Hi, maybe slightly optimistically, but if we're creating our own seeds and have too many of them, is there a way of joining a heritage scheme to submit our own seeds?
So there's a lot, actually, of seed swaps worldwide. There's a lot in the UK, and this is something that if I had time, I would have tried to say. But yeah, there's a lot of seed swaps. Try and find your local one. So my advice would be to type in seed swap and then the town that you live in, and there will be one once a year. Someone will have organised it. If they haven't, for whatever reason, you're their guy. Because they're incredibly popular, and they're a really, really good way of swapping varieties. And because most of those seeds will have been grown locally anyway, they're all going to be adapted to whatever conditions are local to you. So, yeah, absolutely.
Marvellous. Got about 60 seconds left if anybody has any more questions. Got one down here.
Perfect. There's definitely one in Cambridge. So, yeah, enjoy.
Sharing top tips. Love that. Thank you so much. Got time for one more, if any. Yes, got last question here. If you want to get a mic over there, and then we can all hear you nice and clearly, sir.
Yeah, I don't know if I missed this because I popped out, but I'm slightly confused with heritage varieties. You want them to stay the same year upon year upon year. If they have a name like, Bob's Big Bean, then you want them to stay the same, but you actually were then advocating that we want plants to evolve and save seeds from the different ones. And some plants cross-pollinate, which means they go different and they're not the same. Other plants we want to stay the same. I'm confused by that.
So heirloom ones will stay the same, but they will. So the variety will stay the same, but the genetic diversity within that variety will differ. So essentially, you and I are the same variety, but our genetic diversity is completely different. Okay, so me and my brother, we're the same variety, but he's really good at skiing and I suck at it. So it's that kind of difference. It's saving the ones that end up really, really good in your garden. The ones that really thrive in those conditions, they will be the same variety, because heirloom ones don't cross-pollinate. Some do, but by and large, they will stay true to form. Okay?
Marvellous. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give a massive thank you to Becky Searle?
Thank you.